everyone. I hope everything is well at your place and you are doing good. So, today we are taking the worksheets 59, 60, and 61, and we will be covering the chapter Structure of Atom. Most of you must be aware of what an atom is. We have heard this term many times, and we know that it is the basic building block of matter. It is the smallest unit of matter, and it is composed of electrons, protons, and neutrons, which are collectively called the subatomic particles. But this theory we know as of now. Today we know this. Earlier it was not known. Even atom was not known, and it was discovered, it was studied and restudied again and again. So, how do the scientists study anything that we cannot see? Like when on an occasion we get a gift wrapped in something, or we get a parcel wrapped in a box, we keep guessing it. What could it be? Feeling the shape of the box, or the sound that is produced by shaking it. There are many things that can be worked upon. So similarly, the scientists also work on such things. The story of study about atom is long and age old. We will be taking up only the things that are there in your course. So let's begin with Dalton's model. It is a solid sphere model, and also called Bowling ball model. It is proposed by John Dalton. He was a British chemist, and his theory was that all the substances are made up of atoms, and the atoms cannot be created, divided, or destroyed. So atoms can neither be created nor be destroyed. The atoms join with other atoms to make new substances, and the atoms of same element are exactly alike, and the atoms of different elements are different in mass and size. Next important model or proposal was given by J.J. Thomson. His model is also called the plum pudding model or raisin bun model. His theory was that atoms contain negatively charged particles called electron and a positive charged metal. He created a model to describe the atoms as a sphere filled with positive matter with negative particles mixed in it. And he did the famous cathode ray experiment to prove that the atoms consist of negatively charged particles. So, cathode ray, when the high voltage electric current is passed through a discharge tube, this is the discharge tube, and you will watch a video on how the cathode rays are emitted. So, from his experiment, he arrived at the conclusion that cathode rays are nothing but the stream of negatively charged particles called electrons. So, these are the negatively charged particles, which are the integral part of all the atoms. Electrons have both definite mass and definite electric charge, both of which are independent of the nature of gas in the discharge tube. So whichever the gas was put in the discharge tube, it did not define or change the structure, nature, charge, or mass of the electron. So basically what theory he gave this theory that the atom is a mass which is full of positive charge. Like we have the watermelon or dry sponge cake, if we have seen. And the negatively charged particles are embedded in it, like the seeds of the watermelon are embedded in it. The red part, he concluded, was the positively charged particles, and the seeds of the watermelon you can consider as the electrons. Let's now move on to Rutherford's model. His model is also called the nuclear model. The scientist Rutherford gave the theory that a small, dense, positively charged particle present in nucleus is called proton. So basically he did an experiment with gold foil. You will be watching a video on his experiment also. So for your better understanding, we are sharing the YouTube video on it. And he gave his complete theory about the structure of the atom, because the observations, the expectations, the assumptions were all different. So he came up with a new theory. His theory was very different from those given previously, and based on what the scientists were researching things. Even Rutherford also did his experiment based assuming the theories given earlier to be true. But to his surprise, his experiments gave the different results. So the theory he gave was the positive part of the atom was confined to a small, very small center of the atom. It is not spreaded, it is not scattered throughout the atom. Atom is mostly an empty space, and the electrons travel around the nucleus but in their exact places. So there was no direct contact of electrons with the protons. Next we move on to the Bohr model. In Bohr model, the electrons move with a constant speed in fixed orbits. It is very important to mention the fixed orbit. The electrons don't jump around throughout the atoms as per Bohr's model. Like the planets revolve around the sun, the electrons revolve around the nucleus. Bohr proposed that the electrons move in path at certain distance around the nucleus. Electrons can jump from a path from one level to a path on another level. So his main theory was the electrons travel around the nucleus in definite path and fixed distances. Electrons can jump from one level to another in a path in another level. So till now the scientists have assumed, they knew, it was proven that the atoms can now be divided but only into electrons and protons. There were two subatomic particles present in the atom, and to balance it also they are equal in number. So the protons are equal in number with electrons. But another physicist, James Chadwick, discovered the neutrons. They have no electrical charge on it, so they were not studied upon earlier and not even thought of it. Neutrons have a mass nearly equal to the proton, and the measurement of subatomic particle is the atomic mass unit. AMU was earlier used as the unit of measurement of their mass. So it has no charge but mass exactly equal to the proton, and it resides in the nucleus of the atom along with the protons. So finally, the atom got its proper structure, an imaginary phase that started off with theories and hypotheses. It gave it atom a good structure, and virtually all of atom mass is contained within the dense nucleus. If we observe very closely, the basic mass of the atom resides in the nucleus, and every atom otherwise is mostly an empty space. Now this calls for the modern theory of atoms. So now we should know how we know the atoms now. Atoms are composed of three main subatomic particles: the electrons, protons, and neutrons. Most of the mass of the atom is concentrated in the nucleus of the atom. The protons and neutrons are located within the nucleus, while the electrons exist outside the nucleus. In stable atoms, the number of protons is equal to the number of electrons. So we can now compare the properties of the three subatomic particles. Electron has the symbol E minus. Its relative charge is 1 minus. We are comparing it with the charge of the neutron. Electron occupies the space around the nucleus. The protons and neutrons are present inside the nucleus. So now you can attempt your worksheets 59, 60, 61. If you have any problem, you can ask us, and the questions are easy, and we will be sharing the answer key on Monday evening.